of people on here have actually been talking about whether or not TNA should pursue the Ultimate Warrior should he be available later this year. Look, it's easy as pie, okay? Financially, we don't know. We don't know how much the Warrior wants, how much TNA is willing to offer, how much they can offer, but strategically, it's a no-brainer, okay? TNA should jump at the opportunity of possibly acquiring one of the biggest names in the world, okay? Forget the doubters. Forget the doubters, Storm, the other YouTubers, okay? For a company on an awareness campaign, this is an absolute no-brainer, all right? Now, how should TNA use the Ultimate Warrior? That's what this video is about. Let's start at the beginning, okay? Let's start with what we're given and follow a chain of logic, okay? What does the Warrior bring to the table? Warrior walks in the door. What does he bring to the table? He brings two main things. One, fame. He is one of the biggest stars in the world, next to names like Hulk Hogan, Goldberg, Kevin Nash, etc. And two, he brings in controversy. Controversy stemming from his relationship with his previous promotions he worked for and some of the things he said in his speeches in universities, okay? He brings fame and controversy. Now, given these two things that he brings to the table, let's set up some guidelines that we should follow before we book the Warrior in TNA. The Warrior holds international fame, and his arrival to TNA will bring instant exposure for the company. It is obvious then that TNA should milk the Warrior brand to the max. They must, however, do this in a way that satisfies Mr. Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior must look strong during his time at TNA. Now, with that said, the controversial Warrior has been away from mainstream wrestling for around 10 years, and TNA is a company with passionate fans who might be on edge at yet another WWF star's arrival. Therefore, the TNA originals must be untouchable. Warrior is either to be allied with them or completely unassociated. Now, based on this, initial conflicts that the Warrior has must be with former WWE WCW stars. If the Warrior is to feud with a TNA guy, it must be at the very end of his run. We started with givens. From that, we set up some guidelines. Now let's use these guidelines to logically start booking, okay? Who are the biggest stars in TNA commonly associated with WCW or WWF? That's easy, right? Sting and Kurt Angle. Now, should the Warrior sign a short 1 to 2 month contract leading to Bound for Glory, which one of these two guys should he face? The knee-jerk reaction would be to say Sting, given their history together and the perception that that's the dream match. But let's look at this a little more closely. What's the major difference between Kurt Angle and Sting? One's a heel and one's a babyface. If you put the Ultimate Warrior after a 10-year absence in the ring with Sting, which the crowd has grown accustomed to and protective of, the Warrior carries a heavy risk of getting loudly booed in the Impact Zone, and that is not what we want. It'd be a complete fiasco. It'd conflict with what we want to do internationally. Okay, now let's look at Kurt Angle, a true blue heel. If we put the Ultimate Warrior in the ring with Kurt Angle, especially if Kurt Angle's all overexposed and obnoxious right beforehand, there is the intensity, there is the mixed reaction, and that is what we want. And for that reason, at Bound for Glory, I would have Kurt Angle versus the Ultimate Warrior, where the Warrior beats Kurt Angle through outside interference from AJ Styles, and Joe versus Sting for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, this is if it's a short 1 to 2 month contract, but let's say Warrior and TNA like each other. They want to keep going. Let's keep going. Let's say the Warrior stays about 4 to 5 months. Now we can start getting creative. Now we can be sneaky. Now we can set up a plan. Now we can have Sting versus the Warrior at Final Resolution, the dream match to start the year. But, let's say Sting had beaten Joe for the title at Bound for Glory. Now it would be Sting versus Warrior for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Now the TNA fans and all the geeks are getting cautious, okay? But let's say the Warrior beats Sting at Final Resolution and becomes the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion and possible new face of the company, okay? Now the purists, now the geeks, they're all going crazy. They're bouncing off the walls. They're ranting, raving, complaining, how dare they do that for the Warrior, If the Warrior lays a hand on a TNA original, I'm never watching Impact again. I'm never ordering another pay-per-view, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. That's what we want. We're setting them up, okay? because while this happened in a secondary story arc, AJ Styles has dominated his feud with Kurt Angle and now finds himself as a #1 contender for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, setting up for him as the massive underdog versus the Ultimate Warrior at the appropriately named Against All Odds. And at Against All Odds, in the last month of the Warrior's 5-month contract, AJ Styles pins the Ultimate Warrior cleanly in the middle of the ring to become the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Do you see what we did here? We had the Ultimate Warrior come in, we had him beat a top WWF guy, we had him beat a top WCW guy, then we had him overconfident and loudmouth coming into the ring against an underdog TNA guy only to be destroyed by him. Okay, in the end, this whole story arc was for AJ Styles, while managing to provide 2 dream matches, okay, and providing the context to truly put AJ Styles over, okay, because just because someone pins someone does not necessarily mean he's been properly put over, okay? Billy Kidman pinning the Hulk Hogan does not necessarily mean Billy Kidman's a huge star right now, is he? You know, this whole time we were setting up the context to truly put over a TNA original over the WWF and WCW people. Okay, let's summarize this now, okay? Here's the super simplified sequence of events. Note that these pay-per-views are actually not all back-to-back, but actually spread out for maximum build-up. So the Warrior arrives and begins co-feuding with Angle alongside AJ Styles. At Bound for Glory, Warrior beats Angle in controversial fashion, while Sting goes on to win the World Heavyweight title from Joe. At Final Resolution, Angle continues to fight AJ during a series of matches throughout the period in which AJ blossoms into a true contender, while the Warrior captures the world title, increasing TNA's exposure and pissing off TNA purists everywhere. Fast forward in the storyline to Against All Odds, and AJ indeed finds himself against overwhelming odds against the wrestling legends. However, shocking the world, a torn and battered Styles pins the Warrior in the middle of the ring to win the World Heavyweight Championship. TNA Originals flood the ring to congratulate AJ Styles as this young star has finally crossed the line. So what do we get out of this? Let's look at the outcomes. As a result of this booking, we have brought the Warrior brand to TNA while maintaining his character strength and legacy. Along the way, we achieved 2 dream matches that will go down in wrestling history. All of this, though, was done simultaneously to provide context for a TNA Originals ultimate victory. Bottom line, as a result of this, the Warrior's happy, being able to win 2 dream matches and getting a second title reign. TNA's happy, getting all this exposure and making wrestling history. Angle's happy, as he lost to the Warrior only through cheating as a way of getting AJ over. TNA purists are happy, as the Warrior never even touched a TNA original until losing to one. And the mainstream's happy, having been able to see the Warrior once again. In other words, to me, this is epic win. What are your thoughts?